and welcome to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Lowries, and the Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to us by WB40, Women Beyond 40 platform. You can check us out at WB40.com. Today in the podcast, I am super excited to speak to two fantastically gorgeous women who happen to be best friends, and they also work together. I love this. So together they are a force to be reckoned with over at Champagne Cartel. Caroline started Champagne Cartel as a blog many years ago, and then when they joined forces, it became an online magazine and a huge community for women to actually be in a safe space and share their ideas, thoughts and opinions, which is great. I love that. They have actually started a really powerful, I think, an amazing initiative called the Champagne Divorce Club, a one-stop shop for anybody who is separated, thinking about getting separated, or currently going through a divorce. Together they have joined forces with a whole lot of specialists to bring people in this situation a whole lot of information. If you are a woman going through that, or you've already been through it, I know you are going to relate so much to this. So please join us in the confessional, the wonderful Gillian Moody and Carolyn Tate. Hello and welcome to the confessional, Gillian and Caroline. How are you girls?
Thank you. We're excited. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy. It's so good to be here.
No, I was just saying to both of you, and I'll say it again, you both look absolutely gorgeous. Look at you two for early morning. You look amazing.
It descends as the day goes on. So.
And I have already been up, I think, for 5 hours already. So.
Oh. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Right now, you've got us at a good time.
Well, I'm glad I got you at a good time because I'm super excited to talk to you both. I have so many questions to ask you both, and I know we're going to be today. We'll talk about the Divorce Club, your new initiative, which is amazing. But I've got a whole lot of questions because I love everything about sisterhood, as you girls know. That's my thing as well. And I love the journey of your story. I think you girls are brilliant, and how amazing you get to work with each other as best friends. So tell everyone how you girls met and how all of this started, this amazing Champagne Cartel journey.
Well, the fun thing,
it's a funny old story.
as you've alluded to, we're now both divorced. But so the fun thing is that I actually met Gillian because she was a really close friend of my ex-husband. So when I started dating him, he said to me, you're going to meet this friend of mine, Gillian, it's really important that, she, I really put a lot of stock in what she has to say. I really, it's important that she likes you, which should have been an alarm bell straight away.
Red flag.
Can I swear? I was like, oh. But,
and no pressure here at all, Gillian. So
well, yeah, anyway, looking back, I can't even believe I tolerated anyone saying that to me. But so I met Jill. He had a party and she came over and thought she was pretty snooty. And she was like, yeah. And then she went and sat in the corner and spoke to somebody else for the rest of the night. And
because clearly I had no idea of the gravitas of the situation.
I thought, okay. But, social events went on and we got to liking each other. And then we had babies around the same time. And I decided to start Champagne Cartel because, as a blog, because I was at home with 3 little kids and no adults to speak to, and I was online looking for some online community because sometimes you just can't go out, right, because you're surrounded by nappies and washing and whatever. And so I just wanted to create some sort of online community that was supportive and positive, and everyone was just everything I could see online was bitchy and tearing each other down, and I just wanted a space where we could go, this is really hard right now, we're all tired and struggling and you're doing okay, good on you. And so I invited a bunch of women that I liked and respected to contribute to this blog, and there were 6 of us to start with, all from really different walks of life, and who were amazing. And 4 of them kind of got to a point where they were like, I'm going back to work now, or doing other things, and then there were 2 the last women standing.
And when Carolyn came to me and said, I've got this idea for this thing, it's a blog, and I'm like, oh, what's a blog? I weirdly, I worked in digital, but I had no idea about that kind of thing. I was much more on the corporate side. So I was like, oh, wow, what's a what?
They were all a bit new then, though, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. So, I mean, you've always been quite innovative with your ideas. So, and then once we got into the swing of it, gee, it was fun. We just loved it so much. And, you know, we started to build a stable of writers. We had the Writers Cartel. So, and Sandy, you'll know about that. You contributed to work with us, and it was such a beautiful group of women, and, you know, it was amazing. And it was such a positive environment. And always lots of really great topics, some quite really interesting topics, well-educated women, smart, sassy commentary, lots of fun.
Lots of fun.
And I think, you know, obviously I found out about the Champagne Cartel very early on because I was a blogger, obviously, writing the Good Girl Confessional, who of course now has grown up to be a podcast. But that was very much a blog about sex, dating and relationships after suddenly becoming single and divorced. You know, I think I was 41, and started writing that. And so, Caroline, I remember you reached out to me at one point and said, someone mentioned your blog, I really love it. And then I was reading all of your stuff as well. And like, it was just, it was brilliant. It was so good.
Yeah, that was mutual. I was fully obsessed with your stuff too. Every time I would always wait, like, what's happening next? Just because it was a bit secret. So, you know.
It was. And because I was writing under the pseudonym of The Good Girl back then, we were talking about it just a bit earlier, but it kind of really was liberating because I really could talk about this entire sexual revolution that I had gone through post-divorce. And because I'm sure you girls will relate to this, and you'll probably talk to this as well, that I had been married for a very long time, 18 years, and was suddenly single. I had no idea about online dating. What the hell was that? Tinder didn't exist when we were that age. And so that was all a little bit crazy. And so I decided I would start documenting the good, the bad, the ugly, and the hilarious. And there was so much of it. And then I did fall down the rabbit hole of telling everyone about my sex life, which was quite fascinating. And I didn't realize the impact that would have on the people that, of course, found my blog, because they were going through it and saying, I thought I was the only person going through this. So I think what Champagne Cartel did, as you said, you guys were in a very different phase of your life at that point with young babies and going through that. But what you did do was create a community for women who then felt, oh my gosh, we're not alone. I'm not the only one who feels like I'm drowning in, you know, parenthood and, you know, staying at home, and who am I now without my career? All of those things.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that we hear from women the most is always that they're just happy to have found a positive space. You know, we have this Facebook group, Champagne Women, and we're really very careful to curate that space as a positive space, and we will yoink out anything that's bitchy or whingy or, you know, and it's not that there's not space for that. You know, certainly come in and ask questions if you want advice, all that sort of thing. But if you're coming in to bitch about, you know, the fact that your husband keeps leaving his shoes in the kitchen, go somewhere else. We're not here for that.
And it is, I will vouch for that and say it is a very positive space. I mean, you know, I'm part of that community as well online, and it is a very positive space, and it's a really lovely sort of place to be. You get to sort of know people, which is really lovely as well. That's really lovely. So Champagne Cartel starts as a blog, but then becomes really a magazine, an online magazine space, and a shop, and there's merchandise and there's all sorts of things. So how did it sort of morph into that, or was it just a natural organic thing for you girls?
Yeah, not organic as such. I mean, it was very intentional. So what happened, we found we were being approached by quite a lot of brands to do sponsored posts, and, you know, we were going to ProBlogger and doing all these great things, and lots of fun, but we really wanted to find a way to also, you know, bring in income, of course, and actually do that on our own merits rather than always being about writing for brands, which was great. And we had some fantastic brand partnerships as well. But we were like, you know, let's really look at how we can actually do our own branding of our product. What can we do here? So the magazine was the first step in that. And that's really when the Writers Cartel expanded. And, you know, we really started pushing out content a lot more probably, up to 5 posts a week. We had some incredible numbers in readership. And that attracted small brands, of course. And then the next step from there was to go, what else can we do? And the idea of creating merch was always very appealing to us. We loved the idea of a shop. And, having merch where we could actually have a gift shop for women to either treat themselves or treat their girlfriends, that was really something very appealing to us. And so we went down the track of starting an online shop, which, wow, that's a lot of work. And gee, we learned a lot.
Oh boy, ladies, I tell you, when I started this magazine, when I started WB40 magazine, had I realised how much work was involved, and I've said this several times, I don't think I would have done it. But I'm really grateful that I didn't know, because, and I'm sure you girls were the same, because when you leap into it, and of course we're doing a print magazine as well as digital.
Which is glorious, can I say.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Oh my God. I mean, print magazines are going, a lot of the big ones are going away, and so these new ones are coming in to fill that niche. And I'm so grateful, because I hate reading online. Yeah. I love being able, it's not relaxing. I love being able to sit down and relax and look at a print magazine. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And I think it's, and that was like a lot of our readership, was sort of saying, all of our followers previously from the blog, and then, later from the podcast, when we put this out there to our peeps, they were like, I really miss holding a magazine in my hand. And so we've done a few things in ours, which is that the print is actually slightly bigger than most. That's because everyone kept saying I pick up bloody all these magazines, I can't read them. I'm like, I'm so blind. And I'm like,
why is the font so small?
Exactly. And I was like, really? I had never thought about it. And so then, anyway, so it's a bit bigger, but we love it. And again, like you ladies, who have paved such a beautiful path for women, is that we wanted a very, very positive space. And while we're fierce and we don't shy away from any topics, we do want it to be positive, and we do want to showcase absolutely beautiful, chicks who are out there doing kick-ass stuff like you girls, which is amazing. So let's fast forward to the Divorce Club, because life is never just on a straight path, is it, girls?
Oh, that would be boring. Well, we just, we sort of got the shop up and running, and it was really kind of gathering some steam.
And we did some amazing events as well in there.
We were doing some really, we did events.
We did a beautiful Gift-a-Palooza with this fantastic Christmas pop-up that we did in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, just did some fab, fun things.
Let's face it, events were never going to fly over the past couple of years anyway.
No. Sadly, that's true. But you girls have done a lot. I mean, you did have a podcast, and as you say, you did a lot of live events, and which is fantastic. And some gorgeous merch, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, we really enjoyed making the mouthy tees. We liked all the feminist slogan tees, and that was always, when I was really young, I dreamt of having a sneakers and t-shirt shop. I don't know what. So I got to live half of that dream. And then I got divorced. So, and gosh, that's a tough time, isn't it? So,
yes, it is.
I had 3 little kids, and one of whom had some pretty high needs at the time, and was suddenly on my own. And so it really took the wind out of our sails, I think, because suddenly I had to really make sure I could make rent and pay the bills and be there for my kids and do all the things. And so, my attention really went back to my day job and just, getting by. So we shut the shop. I think maybe that year we shut the shop. I can't remember. It took a while, but...
No, I think it was still... I think we kept that going. Still... Yeah, we just kept having so many orders that we did keep running it for quite some time.
Yeah, we kept flogging that horse until it just collapsed. And we ran out of stock, which was good. So I got divorced, and it was really, gosh, I mean, I instigated that separation, but nothing can prepare you, as you know, for just how hard it is. Even if it's what you want, even if it's the right thing, even if you're happy that it's happened, it's, apart from the emotional energy that it takes, also just the physical organisation and admin, and getting divorced you should get like 6 months leave for it, I reckon, to just like do that, because it's such a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and Gillian, my beautiful bestie, was so supportive and wonderful. And I thought, oh, I wish I could find someone like she's so happily married. And then, what happened next?
Dun, dun, dun. 1 year later, to the day almost.
Yeah, like within the week.
Yeah. My husband left. So that was a bit of a shock. You know, it was a real shock. It very much had the rug pulled out from under me. Not what I expected. I didn't see it coming. And I've said this before, but, you know, you hear people say, oh, I didn't see it coming. And you just go, oh, really? Did you really not see it coming? I'm dead set. I really understand now that there are these scenarios where you do not see it coming. Yes, the relationship was not perfect, sure. There were some things we were working on, but in my head, we were working on them. And I guess that was the big, I was just, it was huge shock. So that really took the wind out of my sails for, you know, at least 2 or 3 months. I walked around like a bit of a zombie, terrible sleep problems, awful insomnia, waking up in the middle of the night like a, you know, I'd sort of wake up and for a minute forget what had happened, and then I'd remember, and it would be like this train coming at me. I just would be like having it like almost an instant panic attack, and I just worried endlessly about the kids and what was I going to do financially, and you know, my ex was moving things very quickly, and I was not ready at all to do all of that. So it was a scary time. Yeah. So I really feel, you know, we both really feel for women going through this. It is, you know, the toughest thing you're going to go through. It's really awful. And you don't know it unless you've been through it. And once I went through it, and I had sort of friends of friends who'd gone through divorce, and I was like, oh, I had no idea what they were going through. I just did not know.
Yeah. And I remember that as an experience of myself, like being one of the first in my friendship group to go through it. And like yourself, I always say, oh, I didn't really see this coming. How did I not see this coming? We were fighting a lot. And I think, you know, but I honestly, seriously, I am still, the glass is always half full for me, that I was walking around in this state of, oh, this is awful and shit. But we love each other. So we're going to get through this and everything's going to be hunky dory. And it wasn't. And so for me, it was a massive shock as well. But also too, as you say, to then have it, to not have people around you who can fully understand it. Because one thing is, and honestly, I'd seen people go through that prior and I didn't understand it fully. You know what I mean? So I think you're right. Once you go through it, it's a whole different world. And as you so rightly said, Caroline, there's no, you know, nobody gives you a handbook here. There's no checklist, and that no one gives you time off to just go through your divorce. There's a shit ton of stuff that has to happen, you know, and in the middle of this, as you so rightly say, you are so stressed about your children and your children being okay, or most of us are, and that you're stressed about, oh my God, financial thing was huge for me. You know, I've found myself completely financially desolated by this thing, and it was really difficult. So then having both, I mean, you're so lucky, I guess, in a way that you had Caroline, Jill, who'd been through that prior, who was able to support you, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I cannot, thank Carolyn enough for what she did for me in supporting me. It was incredible having someone right there by my side to give me the support I needed and almost kind of be one step ahead and sort of go, oh, now, hey, here's some stuff. You might need this. And I was like, oh, really? Do I need that? Oh, yes, I really do need that now. So very much, you know, having someone who'd been through it, and so recently as well. I mean, I think we were able to prop each other up at some point.
Oh, yeah, and I was just really excited that Jill was suddenly available on the weekends.
Because that's something else that no one, you know, I wasn't expecting, that no one really talk to me about prior or whatever. Why would they? But it's suddenly like, you know, my ex wanted to have the kids 50-50. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I had never been away from my children for that amount of time. I had never, like, I was like, I didn't become a mother to have my children part-time. What are you talking about? And so that was a real learning curve for me as well, to be on my own, and I mean fully on my own. So your kids aren't there.
Yeah, but I
Right?
think as well that was a real opportunity, and we both have our kids 50-50 as well, and you know, we're lucky enough to have exes that are good dads, and
Yep.
and you know, I'm really grateful for that. And it was an opportunity, you know, at first it was really, I was full of anxiety about being on my own. I hadn't been on my own for so long, and suddenly there's time to think about, well, what do I want? What's you know, what's good for me? And it's really confronting. But I had a wonderful friend, Danielle Colley from Your Good Life, say to me, sit down and think about all the things you're always saying you're not doing because you don't have the time. Write them all down so that when you've got time, you know, you've got this weekend ahead of you with nothing, go and do them. Go climb a mountain or go on a hike or go and, you know, go to a concert or go to the museum or, you know, whatever it is. And you don't have to think about necessarily these huge, like, who am I and what do I want? Just like go and do something fun, you know. And now, oh my gosh, if I didn't have my 50-50 arrangement, I think I would, you know, I get to the end of a week with my kids and go, okay, it's time for you to go now.
Yeah.
And I know that they're safe and they're loved and you know,
course.
they're having a good time. And so it's different. And I think, you know, women who are just starting on that path of handing their kids over 50-50 feel very anxious about it. But I think it's important to know that you can get to a place where you love it and it's good for everybody's happy, everybody wins, and it's delightful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that, you know, I was in the same boat. So initially it was so stressful. But then, you know, I started writing again and I started doing a lot of things actually. And but I wrote about them, I documented them. But I think also too what I was having really great fun with so many girlfriends. And I'm very, very lucky to be surrounded by, you know, I'm in a group of 11 women. We all grew up together. It's mind blowing. It's brilliant. Who all had very different life experiences. And some of them were very happily married and still are. Some of them, you know, they, even though they couldn't understand what the divorce process was like and what I was going through, they were incredibly supportive. So I was out there having a lot of fun with girlfriends too, which is why, as you girls have done, and as I always encourage with our community as well, it's so important to get involved in a community. Not everyone has those close girlfriends around them, but to get involved in safe online communities that are positive spaces can just make such a difference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's where Champagne Cartel came from to start with, you know, and I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that community piece is so important, to feel a part of something when you're suddenly not a part of the thing that you thought you were going to be a part of forever, is just really key, I think, to recovering.
Yeah, and that gathering your tribe around you when it happens, because there is a tendency, I think, for some women, sometimes for us to withdraw, and we're perhaps a bit ashamed. I was a bit ashamed to talk about what had happened at first. I was like, oh my God, it's so shameful. And
you feel like a failure, don't you?
You feel like a failure, and perhaps you might withdraw a little or sort of go to ground. And this is the most important time where try really hard to pull that tribe around, be part of your community, because you need it more than ever. You need it now. So,
yeah, I agree. And I remember, like, I have one of my girls, Patsy, you know, I remember her saying, right, this is it. I was so desolate. Like, I remember I just cried all the time, and I was just such a mess. And one day she goes, that's it. I'm coming around, get in that shower, do your bloody hair, put on some lipstick and get dressed. We're going out. And I'll never.
I love that.
And I loved that. And that was really, I think, the beginning of a sense of healing, if you like, because you can wallow in that space. I was, as I said, lucky to have girlfriends around who were supporting me, but they were probably getting sick of me as well, you know, like I was not in a good place. But I think to have people who know you well enough that they know when is the time that they can do that, or when is, when do you need seriously someone to just give you a big hug, and when you're crying, and when is the time to go get in the damn shower.
Yeah, or watch lots and lots of TV, which is what
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Carolyn came over and we just watched about 130 Rock episodes. I think that
We watched a lot. But I think, and on that, I think it's also a great reminder that even in the darkest part of this horrible thing that's going on, there's always light.
Always.
There's never a day that you can't find something to laugh about or smile at or appreciate. And, we talk a lot about gratitude, which I know is like, but it's true,
No, it is true. No, it is.
That finding things to intentionally looking for things to be grateful for and looking for things to laugh about is so important. And I think sometimes we might come across as a little bit, I might come across as a little bit flippant when it comes to divorce. And I'm not, but I also think it's up to each individual to find that light in yourself. You need to find the light because that light will grow. It will continue to grow as you go on. And we like to talk about how we've turned our divorces into the best thing that ever happened to us. But when you're at, day one, that just seems like the craziest
you can't
emotion.
even imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? But, you can look back on for myself, I can't speak for everyone, obviously. For myself, what I realised is absolutely one of the most devastating times of my life actually created so much growth, personal growth for me, that I found myself in a way. People talk about that as well. Oh, found yourself. But I did, right? I did. And I was like, wow, like it actually became such a positive in my life because I don't think I'd be doing half the things that I have done, if I had stayed in that marriage and in that place. So, and just like you guys, I'm very lucky that he was a good dad and that the kids, could go to him, and then I had this space to grow and change and find out things that I tried things I never thought I'd try in my life. I mean, that's exciting and important. So,
yeah, for sure. And that whole post-traumatic growth thing, it's a really interesting area of study at the moment. You're reading a lot about it and hearing a lot of people talk about it, and it's. I know that we've experienced it and we see it, so many women experiencing it. And it's something that I think is so powerful. And if we can tell these stories of post-traumatic growth so that women know that this is possible. And I think sharing those stories is such an important thing. And, divorce probably was certainly not talked about 5 years ago or, and I think...
Well, and if it was the end of a story rather than the start of a story.
The start of it, yeah.
And it certainly wasn't, lauded in any way, and it wasn't seen as a positive thing as such.
You can't get greeting cards that say, congratulations on your divorce.
But you should,
Yeah. Sell those next.
I think when I was writing my blog, I had readers in America and the UK or whatever, and this was really fascinating to me, that I had a woman reach out to me and she said, my girlfriend threw me a divorce party and full on with a cake. And, she was emailing me saying, oh, my God, this is amazing. Tell me all about it. And she said, they bought me presents. It was fabulous. This is the start of your whole new journey. And I actually thought, what a bloody amazing thing to do, because we celebrate the wedding, right? When you get married, we celebrate it. It's such a big deal. No wonder it's so crushing when it doesn't work out, right? So to be able to celebrate in some way, the start of a new chapter, and obviously there's some healing that has to happen. But that's why I love the idea of what you girls are doing now with the Champagne Divorce Club, because I think, and tell us all about that. I think it's amazing, but tell us all about it.
Just on that, sorry, before we do that, I just wanted to say as well that it's interesting that we celebrate weddings and we celebrate, the births of babies and things, which are all... We're celebrating our function in somebody else's life. We're celebrating being an accessory to somebody else. And the divorce is really the first time you get a chance to celebrate yourself, to say, I'm stepping into who I am now and this is my time. And I think, as you say, there's lots of healing that has to happen, but it's also a great opportunity.
Agreed. Agreed. We should celebrate it,
Yeah, and, we're really all about, with Divorce Club, we're really about that idea that it's time to start planning for your future, following, we want to give women a system that takes the guesswork out of working through their divorces, because it's such a complicated time. And every single woman that we've spoken to says, where do I start? What do I do? I have no idea what to do.
Well, and everyone's in that fight, flight, freeze thing too.
Absolutely.
Lots of us are freezers, I think.
Yeah. I was definitely flight and fight.
And what people don't actually discuss enough, I think, personally, is that for some women going through that separation and divorce, it's grieving. It's exactly like a death. And so you go through grief, and grief, as we know, has all of those steps, right?
Yeah, and it's grieving, but it's complex grieving, because you're grieving a relationship and a person that maybe you don't like much at the moment, or has hurt you, or whatever. So it's not straight someone's gone and you're sad. It's like all of these like conflicting emotions. It's really complicated.
Yeah, it is. And one of the psychologists who we've got on our expert panel, so we have 25 plus experts on our Divorce Club expert panel, and one of our psychologists, she talked about the fact that it's actually, from a psychological point of view, it's easier if someone dies. Not saying, of course, that death is easy, but from how you can handle it, because the grief process is much more straightforward when someone dies. It tends to be a little bit more straight through the process, whereas for divorce, when you've got the person still there and the relationship is so complicated,
and they're being a dick,
and yet you still think you might still love them because it's only 4 weeks in. It's very, very hard to navigate that process. And, one of the big things is we just want women to know that they can not just survive the breakup, but they can do it without the struggle, and they can really use it as a springboard into that next sort of exciting chapter.
Oh, I love that. And I wish it had been around when I went through my divorce, to be honest. I mean, it was for me like, and I'm sure a lot of women out there, this concept, you're Googling everything, or you're trying to find information, or you're asking people, and everyone's got a different opinion, but nobody really, they're not an expert. They don't really know.
Yeah. And we wished that too, which is why we created it. And because I was looking for advice, and I could get some legal advice, or I could get some financial advice, or I could get, something, but there wasn't a place that I could just get this rounded kind of, because they all conflict with each other too, It's so confusing. And as you say, everyone's got an opinion. You ask anyone who's been through a divorce and they'll, tell you all sorts of things. So we wanted psychologists and really, switched on specialists in their field, many of whom have been through it themselves.
Yeah, I think about 90% of our experts have all been through divorce, so they really know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And to create also a private community around it too, where the women in our group get to come into our group and say, hey, this thing's happening for me right now. What can I do? To have that support is really.
Yeah, so we've got a secret group for our Divorce Club. So it's, very much hidden away from the prying eyes of anyone. And, that goes along with, the actual program that we have. So it's an online learning program. We have live monthly Q&As in that private group. So we get to answer a lot of questions. We bring our experts in, can ask all the questions that anyone can ask, the questions that they really want to hear. And, we just find that community is so essential, and women are connecting through this, experience that they're going through. And it's beautiful community.
Yeah, see, I think that's so important, and that's what we were all talking about a little just before, about how important that sense of community can be, that sense of sisterhood, but to be able to discuss it too with people, as you say, who are going through it themselves or have been through it themselves, or, because if you've got friends who have been married and they're still married and they want to support you, but they don't know and they can't know, and not that you'd wish it on them either, because it's a shitty process, but it's right. But it's really nice to be able to chat about it with people who have lived experience of it. Even though our experiences are all different, of course, there is that shared thing of there are certain things that we all share. I mean, the reality of that. So tell us about, some of your experts, because I just love that it's a one-stop shop to be able to go through this and get advice from so many different people is amazing. So who are your experts?
Yeah, so we've got incredible experts, but we've sort of got this 3-phase process. So the experts are kind of different in each phase. You know, you've got your breakup triage, and in there we have psychologists, we have our legal eagle, and, you know, family law experts. So we have...
And that life admin too, of like, how do you like take your home from being a married home to being like a single parent home or a single home?
Yeah.
You know, all of that sort of, how do I organise this life? It's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then sort of the next phase that we see people going really into is that, you know, separation survival, you know, where you've got so much to get done. You might have property settlement, you might need to do co-parenting arrangements. So they're the experts that we have in that area. So we have amazing experts actually in the parenting space, you know, for young kids and also older kids. And we're really trying to make sure that women get the facts on those important issues, really, really crucial issues of property settlement, finance and law, so that you know exactly.
Another one.
Employment.
You know, a lot of people haven't worked for a while or suddenly need to pivot in their career to, you know, up their income, which is, you know, a challenge that I had when I separated. What else?
And there's all the things, you know, joint bank accounts as well. Like a lot of people have joint bank accounts. Suddenly I was like, I don't even have a bank account of my own. I don't, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes people don't even know the passwords to them. You know, there's
right.
So many women have handed their power over financially to their partner. So it's really, you know, empowering them to really take charge and understand. And we talk about, you know, the household budget. You know, we've got an expert in to help with the budget as well. And of course, psychologists. We have psychologists in every stage. Yeah. They're so important.
Yeah, and then you go into that third phase, which is that, you know, it's our favourite one. It's the transitioning with confidence.
Yeah.
You know, you're sort of taking care of business, made it through the jungle, and you can really start thinking about yourself. And it's such a wild ride to actually realise that you can start thinking about what you want. What do I want? I don't even know. Who am I? I don't even know now who I am.
Yeah.
So we've got dating experts. We've got
life coach.
We've got habits formation.
I love that.
Amazing.
Yeah. Financial planning, all that stuff. Yeah.
So really starting to think about your future and where do you want to be. So yeah, that's very exciting.
Which can be, it's fun, but also for a lot of women, it's really intimidating because they haven't had to think about that before. You're so busy with your day-to-day stuff and being a wife and a mother and all those things that when you sit back and go, what do I actually want? It's quite, I don't know, deer in the headlights. So it's fun, but also, you know, it's gentle because we understand that it can be really confronting as well.
Oh, I'm just so blown away by everything that you're doing. I think it's fantastic. And as I said, I wish it had been there when I was going through my divorce. Not that I wish you girls had gone through that at that time. But you're right. I think it's what a beautiful thing to have a one-stop shop where people can come, build and be part of a community, you know, help to be nurtured along the way as well. And there are so many steps along this way, both emotional, legal, financial, all of that. So to come to one place and be able to have their hand, you know, if someone hold your hand and say, well, this is all the things you really should be thinking about. And this is how you can get help and support. And I think it's brilliant. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. We love it. And we're in the Facebook group every day and, you know, there to answer questions. People have always got so many questions. Of course, you know, I had lots of questions too. Like, it's just so nice to be able to help people in those day-to-day things that, you know, maybe you just wouldn't ask anyone and maybe you just ignore it and not figure it out, you know. And just helping women, I think, to understand, especially when it comes to property settlement, understand what you're entitled to, understand that you have rights and really... And also that it's up to you now to think about your future because nobody else is going to do it for you. You really need to step up now. It's time and this is what you need to know.
Yeah, we're really passionate about this because, you know, women that have been through divorce, it's in society, you know, this is a very disadvantaged group and we really want to change that And the way to do that is for women to be empowered, to have that information, and to know that they don't need to listen to what their ex says, because their ex now does not have their best interest at heart in most cases. Of course, there's some cases where that's not true. In the majority of cases, though, your ex is not the person that you need to take advice from. You need to understand your situation and understand what your future situation is likely to be, and how to actually look after yourself and your family.
And that it's no longer your job to play nice and make sure everyone gets along. You're allowed to stand up for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, as we've seen this week with, you know, the amazing, you know, Grace Tame and Brittany Higgins, the world is changing. But I do think that for a lot of us coming out of marriages, I certainly was one of those women who was really intimidated at that time by my ex, and he's telling me this is how it's going to happen and this is what's going to happen, and money and whatever. I was so bamboozled because there was still love there and there was all of these things. So I think to have that advice is so incredibly important. I mean, obviously I'm in such a different headspace. If I had that time to go back in that moment, everything would have been very different, ladies.
Oh, right.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess that's why we want, you know, as well, that's why because we have that hindsight now, so we can share that, which is, you know, hopefully we can help women to have that behind them before they've actually reached that stage themselves, you know.
Yeah.
Not giving your kids advice, you know, they don't listen to it, but I reckon, you know, in this situation it's different.
I think that's very true. It is very true, which is great. So I'm really thrilled that you girls are having a webinar on Friday the 18th, and I'm going to encourage every single one of our readers and our listeners who are going through this or potentially maybe going through this in the near future, that they jump on board to that webinar and they really listen to what you girls are talking about. Because, as I said, if I had have had two amazing chicks step forward when I was going through that and say, come here, take my hand, let us show you now what's going to happen, I would have been in such a different headspace, and I really think that I would have made very different decisions. So I absolutely 100% encourage any woman who's going through this, or as I said, you know, people know sometimes that it's going to happen way in advance, or they've been thinking about it, toying with that. Even if you're not sure, jump on board and listen to Jill and Caroline in this webinar, because I think there's going to be such amazing advice for that, and they can find out more about the Divorce Club, which is the most important thing.
Oh, thanks, Sandy. Yeah, it's there's lots and lots of really useful free info in that webinar, completely free, no strings attached. Jump in. You know, we've got lots of advice to share. So
yeah, you're both wonderful. So I do want to end this on a very positive note, that both of you ladies have found love.
We have. Not that that's necessary for happiness, but we both have.
It's certainly not necessary for happiness. I have been single many times and been very happy. You know, and I have a partner myself now. So yeah, you're perfectly fine if you don't have a partner, absolutely. But I just want to, I guess I'm touching on that because, you know, you've again lived through coming out of that situation into a brand new phase of your lives, of finding yourselves and what do you want to do, and you're empowered and it's brilliant and it shows. And I do think when we get to that place, when we know who we are and we feel empowered, we're more likely then to find love. I mean, that's right.
Yeah, and the relationships that we're in now are so vastly different from the relationships we were in before, because we've gone through this wonderful revolution, which, you know, you were a trailblazer for us in that department, you know, and we talk about the sexual revolution of the divorced woman. So different, you know, and, you know, sex is great, love is great, communication in a relationship.
The communication
is great. Because I'm not, and I think
isn't it different?
So different. And we both went into these relationships, I think, not being afraid to be our absolute selves. And, you know, it was like, love me or don't love me, because this is what you've got.
Yep.
And I'm not going to pretend to be something else, and I'm not going to try to be I talk about this a lot, I bang on about this a lot, but I think When Harry Met Sally has a lot to answer for, because I grew up thinking that being a low-maintenance woman was what we needed to be. And, you know, Billy Crystal talks about there's two kinds of women. There's high maintenance and there's low maintenance. And I thought, I don't want to be high maintenance, and now I couldn't give a fuck. So, so I will be who I am, and I will ask for my dressing on the side, and I will tell you what I want in a relationship. And if that's for you, then that's awesome. We're going to be really happy. And if that's not for you, no harm, no foul. That's okay.
I bloody love that.
I'm not afraid of that now. You know,
Yeah.
I've talked about women are being afraid of dating after divorce. You know, we always say, like, you've been through the toughest bust up already. Like, they can't hurt you now, you know. And people worry about their kids, and you go, well, they survived their parents breaking up. They'll be okay too. You know, I grew up with divorced parents, and my mother had a few relationships, and they didn't bother me. I didn't care. Like, you know, when she broke up with somebody, I was like, okay, well, you know. So I think if you can get over the fear, there is just this glorious freedom that comes with relationships after divorce.
Yeah, and, you know, I just absolutely love all of that. Carolyn and I've talked, you know, a lot about this obviously over the last few years. But, you know, for me going out, for me, it was just dating at first. That's all I wanted, was just fun times.
Good, yeah.
Dating, whatever. And when things started to get a little more serious, I was sort of like, oh, whoa, okay, well, that's not what I expected. But it's been the most beautiful evolution through the relationship, and with that, and it's all been about the honesty and just being totally true and authentic to myself the whole time. I would say to Carolyn, do you think, you know, do I need to be more honest or different? Should I be saying something different? And Carolyn's like, no, you're being really, really the most honest version of you. No, all good. Because, you know, I was very honest.
Oh, and the guy that's hung around for all that honesty is a winner, isn't he? I mean,
I'm a very, very lucky lady.
Well, you certainly both seem extraordinarily happy, and that's great. But I agree with you. I guess because I was so vocal about dating, and I still am. I don't care. I tell everybody anything. This is who I am. But I do have a lot of friends when they're single say, oh, you know, how did you do it? Give me this advice. I said, well, you know, the first thing is know yourself. And and I always say, you know, I get on dating sites, you want to put the best photo of yourself up. Of course we do, right? But I'm a curvy chick, so I made sure it was full body shot. This is who I am. If you don't like it, don't apply. Don't apply. And I think getting to a point where I was 100% okay on my own, really enjoying it, that makes a big difference as well, right? Because
it takes an extraordinary person to make you give up that time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really does. So, well, I think you girls are bloody incredible. I'm going to put all the links to everything in the show notes and on our socials. So we'll share all the links to, you know, the webinar on Friday, to Champagne Cartel, to the Divorce Club, so people can see and check it out. And there's more information there about both of you because you're brilliant. And I just wish you all the best for the future. I think what you're doing for women is incredible. Love you lots for that.
Thanks, Sandy.
What an awesome chat. Thank you so much for having us. We just think you're amazing as well, and just really appreciate you having us on board. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.